Hello trainers, Professor Palm here, and welcome back to Pseudo Study. Seeing that so many of you really liked talking about pseudo-legendary Pokemon, like when we covered Tyranitar the last time, I thought we'd do it again. After all, who doesn't love having a pseudo-legendary Pokemon on their team? For this series, we'll be looking at all pseudo-legendary Pokemon that have appeared in all 9 regions, all 11 of them. That's right, we're going all the way from Kanto to Paldea. For those of you who are returning to the series, welcome back. But for those of you who are new to the series and don't know what pseudo-legendary is, allow me to explain. Just like with the names Shiny Pokemon and Evolutions, pseudo-legendary is a fan term, and it refers to any Pokemon that has a 3-stage evolutionary line, has a base stat total of exactly 600, and requires exactly 1,250,000 experience points to hit level 100. Currently, as of all 9 generations, we have a total of 11 pseudo-legendary Pokemon, but there are still more to be discovered. The most common typing for pseudo-legendary, of course, is Dragon typing. Even though it's a bit of a cliche, it does make sense as back in Generation 1, Dragon, along with Ghost type, was one of the rarest typings out there, as there were only a total of 3 of each. You know, I think that we need to go to the original roots. We need to go back. No, not just back one region. I mean, we have to catch ourselves a Celebi and go back in time! Back in time to 1996 and 1998, when Pokemon Red and Green came out in Japan, as well as Red and Blue came out in America. It introduced us to so many Pokemon, a total of 151. But out of all of them, we're going to talk about the one who set a trend that still stays today. And of course, we're talking about Dragonite, the OG dragon. It's crazy to look back at the first pseudo-legendary Pokemon and see where we've come in all that time. It blows my mind how far we've come since we've had Dragonite. But in my opinion, I think Dragonite still holds up, as not only was its family the first dragon type ever, they've really set the bar high for what dragon type Pokemon can be, as well as pseudo-legendary Pokemon. They really started off with a bang. I think that Dragonite is an amazing Pokemon. For the first dragon type line ever, they really are some of the greatest, and they really still hold up after all these years. Oh, and I just want to say, for any of you out there that played Red or Blue, or even Green and Yellow in Japan, I applaud you for going on a Dragon Quest if you got yourself a Dragonite in the game. That is no easy task. For those of you who also really love Dragonite, I hope that every time you have a Dragonite, it serves you well. And for those of you who've never had a Dragonite before, you definitely should have one for your team. They're some of the greatest partners you could ever have. After all, if you want to have a good pseudo-legendary Pokemon, go on the Dragon Quest. So, let's talk about everything that makes Dragonite an amazing Pokemon. But before we do that, I want to give a very special thanks to fellow subscriber, Puffy Sparkles. I hope that you enjoy this video to the fullest. You love Dragon-type Pokemon, so I thought we'd talk about the OG Dragon line for you. And you're not the only one that I'll be thanking today. HTTP Koopa, I want to give you a very special thanks and shout out for my shirt. Today's shirt is the Dragon-type jersey. This is worn by plenty of the trainers in the Hammerlock gym, as well as gym leader Raihan, when he wears it underneath his incredible hoodie. If you like Dragon-type Pokemon, or you really like these jerseys I wear, please check out HTTP Koopa on Etsy. I have a link to his Etsy shop in the description below. He makes incredible shirts. He also makes lots of video game and cartoon shirts. So, if you want to see what else he makes, please check him out. Maybe buy a shirt or anything he sells, and don't forget to tell him Professor Palm sent you. While I may not be sponsored, I still want to say thank you for all you've done for the channel, and thank you for this incredible shirt. Well, trainers, do you love Dragon-type Pokemon? And are you ready to learn how to become a Dragon Master, as well as earn your wings for this Dragon Quest? Well, I hope that you're ready. So, let's talk about the dragon that started it all for all of us trainers, Dragonite. For the Dragonite family or Dragonite line, whichever you prefer to call, it's a 3-stage evolution. For this dragon family, we begin at the first and basic stage with the little serpent Dratini. Then at level 30, Dratini undergoes evolution and evolves into the middle stage of Dragonair. Then at level 55, we end our little dragon quest when Dragonair evolves into Dragonite. All in all, you need to get to levels 30 and 55 to experience this dragon quest. While levels 30 and 55 don't seem that hard, Remember, this was back in the day with Generation 1. This is when only one Pokemon gained experience from a battle. Oh, and while we did have the EXP share, it's not like what it is today, where everyone gains it. Also, rare candies were really hard to come by, and there was no such thing as EXP candy. So yeah, getting to that high level for a Dragonite was an achievement. Also, in Generation 1, 55 was the highest level possible for any Pokemon to evolve. For its habitat, Dragonite is very rare in the wild. While they prefer to soar high in the skies, Dragonite go back to their old ways as Dratini, as they typically live near the sea. Some sailors and dragon trainers claim that there's an island somewhere in the ocean that only Dragonite inhabit. And in the Pokemon Journeys anime, this was proven right when Ash and Go went to Dragonite Island. Since these Pokemon patrol the skies and the seas in search of a rescue, they're known as the Guardians of the Sea. The first games that Dragonite ever appeared in were Pokemon Red, Green, and Yellow in Japan, while for international releases, Dragonite's first appearance was in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Back in Generation 1, Dragonite was the only of its kind, as there were no other Dragon-type Pokemon except for its line, with also Dragonair and Dratini. Also, as amazing as this Pokemon is, Dragonite could not be found anywhere in the Kanto region. The only way you could get yourself one was by buying a Dratini at the game corner, having enough coins, or going to the Safari Zone and fishing. If you were lucky, you could either hook yourself a Dratini or a Dragonair, and then you take the next step for the Dragon Quest and evolve it into this amazing Dragon Pokemon. The first games where you could catch Dragonite in the wild were Generation 5 games, being Black, White, Black 2, and White 2. You could catch Dragonite outside of Dragon Spiral Tower, but you have to go fishing in the water ripples. And even if you go fishing in the water ripples, you have to get lucky, as it's a 1% chance encounter. For the lore of Dragonite, Dragonite resembles ancient Japanese dragons, as well as European dragons and fairy dragons. As its name says, the Guardian of the Sea, it may also suggest that Dragonite has elements similar to ancient Chinese water dragons. Also, as seen in the Nackarine City Museum in the Unova region, there is a fossil of a giant Dragonite, hinting that possibly Dragonite lived during the Stone Age, and if that's the case, it really hasn't had much evolution since then. According to the Pokédex, Dragonite is a kind-hearted Pokemon that has a gentle nature, and it's also a guardian, not just to its trainers, but to those in need. Despite Dragonite's big, bulky physique and small wings, it's an incredibly fast flyer. In fact, Dragonite can fly across the entire world in just 16 hours! Dragonite are incredibly strong with both arms. Even though they're big, it can smash through raging waves and even the thickest of ice as if it was nothing. In fact, it's said that Dragonite are so motivated and nothing stops them that they can get to their destination no matter what, even through the harshest of blizzards or even the heaviest of thunderstorms. Dragonite are also rather intelligent, as it's said that the intelligence of a Dragonite is to match that of humans. Dragonite patrol the skies and the seas in search of people and Pokemon in trouble. This Pokemon is like a guardian angel, and it's also a rescuer. When it sees a shipwreck or somebody drowning, it immediately springs into action to help without a second thought, all the time bringing them to dry land and knowing that if there's civilization close by. There was once a tale of a Dragonite saving a shipwrecked man, taking him to a remote island, otherwise known as Dragonite Island. Because of this, watching out for others in the sea and the sky, Dragonite has been given the nicknames the Sea Guardian and the Sea Incarnate. While Dragonite are often peaceful in the wild, they will fight if their opponent makes them or if something really hurts them. They will smash everything to smithereens until it's satisfied. It's best to stay on the good side of a Dragonite. Sadly, because Dragonite live near the sea, it doesn't go many places, so there are very few people who ever see it in the wild. Dragonite has made many appearances throughout the anime over the years. Its first appearance was in the movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, where Dragonite delivered an invitation for Ash and his friends from Mewtwo to come to New Island. However, Dragonite's first major roles in the anime was in the Pokemon Master's Quest episode, Fangs for Nothing and Great Bowls of Fire. In the episode, Fangs for Nothing, a Dragonite lived happily in the Dragon Holy Land. This Dragonite once belonged to the former Blackthorn City gym leader, before he unfortunately passed away. As Team Rocket was getting away with the Dragon Fang, which they stole from Gym Leader Claire's gym, they crashed and were going down the waterfall, only for Dragonite to save them. While Team Rocket was thankful, they realized they had an ace up their sleeve with Dragonite and they lied to it. They claimed that they were good people trying to give the Dragon Fang to someone important, and that Claire, Ash, Misty, and Brock were bad people trying to take it from them, and that they were trouble and coming to destroy their land. Their story made Dragonite cry as it tugged at its heartstrings. When Ash, Misty, Brock, Claire, and Kuburagi all showed up to the Dragon Holy Land, Team Rocket ordered Dragonite to use Hyper Beam on Ash and his friends, which it did without any question. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but unfortunately, Team Rocket got away with Dragonite as it scooped them up and flew them far away. As the group attempted to go after them, a Pokemon swooped down, ending the episode on a cliffhanger. In the next episode, Great Bowls of Fire, the mystery Pokemon turned out to be Ash's Charizard, who was on a training mission with Charla and Lisa. It was a happy reunion with everyone with Lisa. It was also revealed that Claire and Lisa had been childhood friends. Also, Ash's Charizard had become Charla's bodyguard. Hearing what happened, Lisa, along with her Charizards, took everyone to find Dragonite. Dragonite flew Team Rocket to another part of the Dragon Holy Land, let them down, and as they were catching their breath, Dragonite brought the trio a bunch of fruit as a token of their friendship, which all of them gorged on. After enjoying that wonderful meal of fruit, Team Rocket then discovered the Dragon Shrine, and as Dragonite slept, they all went inside to see what they could steal, only just to find the Prayer Flame. However, Team Rocket saw a giant golden bowl and saw nothing more than that. James was smart enough to say, let's not blow out the fire, so he grabbed the bowl by wearing fireproof gloves and goggles, only for his plan to backfire and get himself incinerated. James then threw the prayer flame on the ground and it started a huge forest fire. This woke up Dragonite and it became angry, learning that Team Rocket had only used it. Filled with so much rage, Dragonite chased Team Rocket using Hyper Beam until Jessie used her Wobbuffet to deflect the blast. This didn't last long, as Dragonite tried to deliver the finishing blow, only for Ash's Charizard to step in and save them. With how bad the fire was, Claire sent out her Dragonair and used the move Rain Dance to put out the fire. Knowing that they could help, Brock sent out both his Onix and Geodude to be rescuers to the Pokemon, while Misty sent out her Staryu and Politoed to be firefighters. Seeing that Ash and Claire were there to stop Dragonite, Team Rocket was grateful, asking what they could do, only to have Kuburagi take back the Dragon Flame. Claire then tried to talk to Dragonite, only for it to attack her until Charizard blocked its Hyper Beam with its flamethrower. Realizing Dragonite was suffering from attack rage, Claire came to the realization that Dragonite was confused and had to bring its memory back. Ash tried to use Pikachu to take on Dragonite, only for it to be thrown back, and as Dragonite tried to attack Ash, Charizard came in and held it back. Then Dragonair also helped out Ash using Safeguard so it didn't take any damage. Claire and Ash realized they needed to work together, and they used a 3-Pokemon combo to take down Dragonite. Claire's Dragonair used the move Rain Dance to make it storm. Ash's Pikachu then used the move Thunderbolt to hold it in place. Finally, Ash's Charizard used the move Fire Spin. The plan worked, as Dragonite came to its senses and became docile again. However, after seeing all the damage it did, Dragonite broke down in tears, disgusted by its actions, only for all the other Pokemon in the wild to come and comfort it. Dragonite then, with the rest of everyone, put the prayer flame back in the shrine. Every pseudo-legendary Pokemon is unique, and Dragonite being the first pseudo-legendary ever has a lot of fun tidbits to talk about, so here's a few fun facts about Dragonite. Unlike the rest of its line, with both Dratini and Dragonair, Dragonite is the odd one out, not just with its typing of flying, but also with its ability Inner Focus, as the rest of its line has the ability Shed Skin. When Dragonite evolves from Dragonair, it becomes surprisingly shorter. However, this is likely due to Dragonair being measured through body length rather than height. Before other Dragon-type Pokemon could learn the move, Outrage was originally the signature move of Dragonite. As seen in the movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, some Dragonite work for the Postal Service. Just like with Delibird and Rapidash, Dragonite are very fast to deliver mail and packages, and since it only takes them 16 hours to circle the entire world, they never will get lost, and also, they'll always be on time with a delivery. Before Generation 5 introduced Larvesta and Hydreigon, as well as Generation 8 introducing Dragapult, Dragonite and Tyranitar had the highest level possible for evolution, at level 55. In Pokemon Go, Dragonite is one of the few Pokemon that's neither a mythical Pokemon or a legendary Pokemon that can have a CP or combat power of 3,000 or more. Dragonite is the signature Pokemon of Champion Lance when you battle him at the Indigo Plateau. Since Lance uses 3 in his battle, this makes him currently the only champion to use multiple pseudo-legendary Pokemon for a champion battle. Dragonite and Hydreigon are the only 2D era pseudo-legendaries to not receive Mega Evolutions. In the wild, Dragonite have a bitter rivalry with Kingdra, which may explain a lot why Lance doesn't use a Kingdra for his champion battle, but why his cousin Claire uses a Kingdra in her gym battle. And despite Dragonite being unable to be caught in the wild unless you use cheats, Dragonite's catch rate in Pokemon Yellow was changed from 45 to 9, but reverted back to 45 in all other games since. Even though Dragon and Flying is not the most unique typing, it was back in the day, as there were only 3 Dragon-type Pokemon, being Dragonite, Dragonair, and Dratini. Dragonite was the odd one out, as it was the only dual-type Dragon Pokemon at the time, and it also had a couple of weaknesses that made it different from the rest of its family. The attacks that Dragonite are weak to are none other than Rock-type, Dragon-type, and thanks to Professor Sycamore's very hard work and research in the Kalos region, Fairy-type. Even though Dragonite is weak to Fairy, Dragon, and Rock-type attacks, these are only ×2 weaknesses. Dragonite has one horrible weakness that it really cannot stand. And of course, Dragonite's main weakness is Ice-type attacks, because Ice-type moves do ×4 damage to it. Also, I'd like to say that Dragonite was the Pokemon that set the trend for almost all pseudo-legendaries, as almost every pseudo-legendary we have has at least one ×4 weakness. Well, seeing that we saw all of Dragonite's weaknesses, I think it's time we shift gears and check out all of Dragonite's strengths. This Pokemon had a rather unique typing back in Generation 1. While Dragon and Flying is rather common now, I think it's time we see what Dragon and Flying is so strong against, and also what really made it strong back in time. With the rather unique typing it had with Dragon and Flying, Dragonite had a couple of strengths, and when it would battle, the Pokemon that would be very weak to its attacks, being both Dragon and Flying, are none other than Grass-type, Fighting-type, Bug-type, and Dragon-type. If you remember back in Generation 1, Dragon and Ghost were the most unique typings. Not only were they rare, but they were also, and currently are, the only type that are weak to one another. So yeah, this is what made Dragon really impressive. And it's also really cool that Dragonite is pretty even, having 4 weaknesses and 4 strengths. But with the Flying type added, it also has an immunity. And of course, Dragonite's main immunity is none other than to ground type attacks. Because this Pokemon flies high in the sky and also soars great distances, ground type moves won't do any damage to Dragonite whatsoever. All these years later, Dragonite, for being the first pseudo-legendary, still really holds up. Even with that ×4 weakness to Ice, it really did set a great trend, and it also really is a great Pokemon to have by your side. I especially love the fact that this one is the odd one out of the family, as most other pseudo-legendary Pokemons can be very strong and very violent. Dragonite is strong, but it also has a gentle nature and a big heart. With that big heart that Dragonite has, it has an incredible big brain to match with it. I must say, I'm surprised that Dragonite never works in the Poké Center. This would be a great Pokemon to have there. Also, with that intelligent brain and that big heart, this is a great Pokemon to have on any team. Not just is it an expert strategist, but sometimes it can be the best friend you'll ever have. Something that I always feel the worst about Dragonite for is that it's kind of the odd one out for all pseudo-legendary Pokemon. If you really think about it from another angle, this is the only pseudo-legendary Pokemon that doesn't have a Mega Evolution, a Paradox relative, and it does not have a regional form. Despite it being the OG, I really think that Dragonite deserves more. With the abundance of Dragon-type Pokemon we have, Dragonite being the first one really also was one of the hardest ones to come by. Not just was it a hard level to get to, but if you really think about it, very few trainers had either a Dragonair or even a Dratini on their team. And also, if you didn't go to the Safari Zone or you never went to the game counter, finding out that there were Dragon-type Pokemon in the Elite Four was a huge game changer. After all, Dragon-type Pokemon not only were the rarest type out there, but also, a lot of us didn't realize that until we finally got towards the end of the game. When looking back all these years later, Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite really set the bar high for what it means to be a pseudo-legendary Pokemon. It's also crazy to think that back in Generation 1, there was no other Pokemon quite like them. After all, just like with Ghost typing, Dragon was one of the rarest typings out there, as there were only 3 to begin with. But seeing that we have so many pseudo-legendary Pokemon, these guys really started an incredible trend. Looking at pseudo-legendary Pokemon, every one of them is unique and every one of them is special in their own way. But to me, I don't think anything can be as memorable than the OG dragons. Welcome back, trainers. I hope that you had a wonderful Dragon Quest with Dragonite. You may not be Dragon Masters like Lance and Claire, but in my opinion, you're taking your first step. There's so many other Dragon Pokemon that we could talk about, as well as other Dragon Pseudo-Legendaries. But before we end this, I have a few questions for all of you. Since we've had so many Dragon Pseudo-Legendaries, which one out of the 9 is your favorite? What was the first Dragon-type line you ever raised? Also, if you played in the Kanto region in Red and Green or Red and Blue, did you know about Dragon-type Pokemon before you took on Lance? Or was your battle with Lance the first introduction to Dragon-type Pokemon? Who is the first pseudo-legendary Pokemon you ever caught? And if you ever see them again, will you catch them again? Out of all trainers in the games and anime, who do you think raised the best Dragonite? Do you think it was Iris? Do you think it was Ash? Or do you think it was Lance? And if Dragonite Line got regional variants, what typing would you make it, as well as what would the region be based on? For me, I would love to have a region based on the Nordic countries. After all, Norway is known for having Vikings fighting dragons, and I think that would be amazing to see this entire line as Dark and Dragon, that they went from friendly to being brutal creatures since they were hunted into extinction. It'd be kind of cool to see Dragonite becoming this cute little friendly dragon into a fierce fighting warrior. Well, trainers, if you liked what you saw, then please leave a like. If you have any questions, you want to answer any of the questions I just threw out at you, you want me to cover another pseudo-legendary for Pseudo Study, you want me to make a video about something going on in Pokemon, or there's another Pokemon line that you really want me to talk about, then please comment. And as always, if you liked what you saw and you want to see more, smash that subscribe button. Also, feel free to recommend me to anyone out there. After all, I'm a Pokemon professor and I want to meet as many trainers as I can. Thanks for watching, trainers, and Puppy Sparkles, I hope that you enjoyed this video to the fullest. Palm out!